Welcome to Healing Honeys, the podcast for girls with big dreams trying to balance it all. I'm Louise Rumball, serial entrepreneur, type A overachiever, healing girlie, and holistic wellness coach who also once got called the Jesus of modern dating. But let's get one thing straight. My healing era has never been calm. I'm talking savage dating stories, 20 cigarettes a day, daddy issues, an anxious attachment style, and an autoimmune disorder too. Today, I've spent thousands of dollars on healing and therapy, and now I'm here to guide you, love you, and laugh with you as I share my favorite tips, tricks, and rituals that have saved me along the way. With new episodes every Wednesday, expect girl talk, psychology, and the nervous system, as well as love, sex, and dating, wellness, fitness, and a little bit of business and spirituality too. So get in, honey. We are balancing healing, hustling, and life, and the best is yet to come. And if you're looking for ad-free listening or my somatic healing subscription daily devotion, just head over to the show notes. Now, let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of Healing Honeys. And that feels so weird to say after like 2.5, 3 years, you guys know I'm bad with numbers, of saying, welcome back to another episode of the Open House podcast. So that felt so weird. And what is even weirder is that today I am recording with video, I am on camera, everything is changing around here. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you because this is the beginning of a new chapter. And I am so excited for what is going to come. It just felt right to bring some new energy, some new excitement, some new creativity back to the podcast. And today, I just really want to reintroduce myself for those of you who are new. But I also want to tell you a little bit about what you can expect from the new series before we get into the juicy stuff. And the juicy stuff being the ways that I have unfucked my life, the things that I have done that made the biggest difference to my healing. Because when I was launching this episode, when I was planning, I was thinking, what should I launch with? And it felt kind of nostalgic to look back at everything that I have gone through over the past, nearly decade, probably longer, since life is just one whole big learning journey, but probably about 8 years that I have been actively doing this healing work. And I have come so far. Sometimes I even find myself thinking, do I need to do a healing podcast anymore? Because honestly, I don't have on some good days really that much more to work on. But I also know that healing is an ongoing and forever journey. And every day there will be new experiences and situations and dynamics that you've never faced before. So I know that there is still more for us to go through. But I've come so far on my healing journey, and today I'm going to share you the key milestones and things and lessons that I went through that were really pivotal changing moments. So I want you guys to understand them because they might be helpful for you as well. But before we get into that, let's just do a tiny recap. So if you are new here, my name is Louise Rumball. I have been the founder of the Open House podcast up until now. So this podcast used to be the Open House podcast. And I started this podcast because I went to therapy and I was like, this is some of the most revolutionary stuff that I have ever experienced. And I felt so bad that I was able to afford one-to-one therapy because of my financial position at the time. I was running a marketing agency. And I just felt so guilty that some people wouldn't be able to get that therapeutic experience. And particularly if you're in England, there's a huge, huge waiting list on the NHS. And if you're in America, I know that there's the whole insurance game, and it's something that I'm not too familiar with, but I know a lot of you message me saying that it can be difficult at times as well. So I started this podcast when I basically was at rock bottom. I went into the therapy room and I was like, this shit is game changing. But I can't just be another influencer or creator saying, mental health is so important, mental health is so important. So in the first series of the Open House podcast, I took you inside the therapy room with me and with Dr. Helene Laurent Oliver, very, very chic name, to just really do some live therapy together. So you guys could see that therapy is nothing to be scared of. Yes, it can bring up uncomfortable feelings and sensations and experiences, but underneath that, it's really the most revolutionary, life-changing experience of self-awareness and introspection that really connects all of the dots and gets those light bulb moments going, ding, 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 ding. So that is how I started the podcast. And I then went on TikTok as the therapy girl. And that was really when things started to blow up. So around episode 38, the anxious attachment series, as well as all things TikTok, the podcast really just grew really fast overnight. And from that point on, I was just holding on for dear life, because now we are on episode something like 169, and I just kept going and going and going. So we took a break, and I decided that I wanted to pivot. I wanted to change. I wanted to bring in new segments. I wanted to bring in you guys, which is something that I'm going to tell you about in today's episode. I just wanted some new. And I think that that's part of life, is it's okay to evolve and grow and to change. And we actually shouldn't stay the same forever. So today I'm going to be talking you through all of those points of evolution in my journey so you can learn from them as well. But yeah, welcome to Healing Honeys. This feels like the next stage and chapter in this journey. And it's really going to be the same combination of girl talk and therapy, but there is going to be more video, more guests, more experts. We are launching the Healing Honeys Hotline, where you can submit your questions. You can be featured in voice notes. You can be featured as guests on the pod with me. I want to dive into your stories and to help you. And we're also going to be launching a segment called Trash Talks, which is where we just talk about the trash dating stories that we have all gone through, because boy, oh boy, we have all gone through them. And I, more than anyone, have had my fair share of really awful dating stories. Now I'm ready to get into the main part of this episode. I hope you are too. And today we're going to be talking about the 10 things that I did, or the ways that I unfucked my life, the 10 things that I did that I saw the biggest change from in my healing journey. And to put together this episode, I really had to reflect over the last decade. It was actually a kind of crazy experience to ask myself, what did I take most value in? And what did I see the most change from? And what also didn't work for me? And I came to this conclusion that the first thing I did that healed my entire life, or was the catalyst for me healing my entire life, was quitting alcohol. So I always say to everyone, there's a point when you just have to say enough is enough. And I think the thing about this enough is enough is that for some people it happens and it hits you in the fucking face. It is like something awful happens where you just crumble and you're like, I can't do this anymore. But the other version of the enough is enough moment is the moment when you basically just really finally admit out loud for the first time ever, potentially like, I'm just not happy. Maybe you just say like, I think I'm depressed, or maybe it's that I know that I'm meant for more in this life. And the thing about my enough is enough moment is it started with something really bad happening to me. And I don't want to start the episode off on a really dark note, but I was at the point where I was based in London. I was running a 6-figure marketing agency. I was launching dream clients. I was launching dream businesses. I was working with Nike. I was launching some of London's best bars, restaurants. I've launched 25 gyms around the world. I would do all the branding. It was really like a dream at that point in my life. But what I didn't realize, which I'm going to come into today, was I was just running on autopilot. And from the outside, I had the life that I thought I should have. I had the life that I thought I should want. I had good friends. Sometimes I had a boyfriend. I had a nice apartment. Nothing was crazy. I didn't live in like a huge apartment, and I wasn't making like 500 grand a year, but life was good. And I looked pretty good. I just kind of was like ticking all of the boxes from outside of me. But looking back, what I didn't realize was that my drinking was kind of getting out of control. There were definitely points of my drinking journey when I would drink alone, but mainly when I was like on holiday or I was at my parents' house in South Africa where there's just like a lot of wine everywhere. But for the most part in my life, I definitely wasn't drinking like in the day. I wasn't drinking during the week. I just didn't really have a stop button. And I would go out on the weekends and I would get drunk, and not like super messy, like drunk on the pavement, drunk on the sidewalk drunk, just drunk. Like maybe I would do things that I regretted. Maybe I would say things that I would regret. Maybe I would almost certainly wake up the next day feeling very, very hungover. I got literally the world's worst hangovers. But I think until something like really bad happens, we do just tend to stay in these cycles until that real like enough is enough moment happens. And sadly, my enough is enough moment did happen when a night out went horribly wrong and I ended up being really traumatically sexually assaulted. And it was a horrible part of my journey. It was the first time that I've ever really understood what the freeze mode is. You know, that moment when your nervous system just shuts down and you don't move. And in hindsight, you're like, why didn't I do anything? Why didn't I say no? Those kinds of things. And that was my unraveling. That was my this is enough moment. And from that point on, it wasn't actually that pushed me inside of the therapy room, but it was that made me realize like, my drinking is causing me problems. And it's not causing me problems like 3 p.m. on a Monday afternoon, I'm drinking in the park out of a brown paper bag. Like, not those kinds of problems, just the kind of problems where I wasn't like a good or great version of myself. And I wasn't happy. And I was like having to deal with regret and guilt and shame and all of those things. So that was the moment that I decided to give up alcohol for 30 days. That was 6 years ago. So I am now nearly 6 years sober. One thing you guys will learn about me is I am so bad with numbers. I literally couldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you what year I went sober in, like nothing. So I just have to scroll back on my Instagram and see what number I posted last year. And I believe March of this year was 5. So I'm actually 5.5 years sober now. And that was the first thing that really started to unfuck my life, because when I started to take alcohol out of my life, even though it wasn't drinking a lot and it wasn't drinking frequently, and I didn't classify myself as an addict, taking that out of my life opened up space on the weekends for me to kind of think, and space for me to actually exist without having to just be hungover all the time. Because when we're hungover, we are just kind of struggling to survive, right? We're not introspecting. We're not like striving for anything. So it really opened up space for me to start to just think about my life. And not a huge amount of like change happens when we think, but I definitely think that thinking is the starting point. So I would say that sobriety has definitely been the best thing I have ever done. It's 100% been my greatest accomplishment in my life, but it also has just allowed me to step into a version of me that I just like more. And I don't deal with those cycles of regret and guilt and shame anymore. And I just stopped essentially like hooking up with guys because I was drunk, or doing things when I was drunk because I just like wanted their love or I wanted their attention, or, and some of the nights were so fun, don't get me wrong, but it definitely has just brought a calm to my life that I am very grateful for and has definitely been a huge part of my healing journey. The next thing I did that was kind of a key part of unfucking my life was closing down my business. Now, a lot of people definitely thought I was really crazy. As I said, I was making really good money. I had dream clients, but I was like building out this team below me and I loved some of them so much, but I kind of like, anyone that runs a business knows that is inherently incredibly stressful to run a team. And I think that I'm just not really cut out for the role of like running a team. It's just like not my dream job. And I think that the business just like grew and grew and grew. And it got to a point where I realized I'm going to have to just sell this business to another agency for this to ever really make me that much money. I wasn't paying myself a huge amount of money. If you are a founder or whatever, you often don't. So the second thing I did was I started making really scary decisions. And I can't give you guys too much advice on making scary decisions because I'm the queen of making scary decisions. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's that I just know that I want to always reach my potential in this life. And I sometimes know that if we don't make hard decisions, we will quite literally stay in the same places and patterns with the same people and things and experiences and emotions firing on repeat until we do something different. But I just knew I had to do something different. So I closed down the business and that was really hard. I had to fire people. I had to, make some really hard decisions and have really uncomfortable discussions. But I kept just one client. So this isn't the first time that I made uncomfortable decisions in my life. When I was 23, I qualified as a lawyer. And right after my 2 years of law school and 2 years of training within the law firm, I decided I'm going to quit. I'm talking like you do like 4 or 5 years of training to get to the day where you can say, I'm a lawyer. And on the day that I got to that point, I had accepted a job that was based in Dubai to be a lawyer in Dubai. And I literally quit. Like I emailed them and I said, I'm so sorry. I am going to quit. I'm not going to pursue a career in the legal world. And that was because basically I met the guys behind this gym in London called One Rebel, which is kind of like a Barry's boot camp, Orange Theory, Soul Cycle, but like way fucking cooler than all of those. And they were like, you should come and work with us. Like you're creative and you're fun and you're smart. Like, why don't we do something together? So I actually just literally left the legal field. I was like 23 or 24 as I was qualifying. And obviously my dad and like mad daddy issues, we're going to come to them in today's episode. He was really the only reason subconsciously that I ever became a lawyer, because he was a lawyer. So that was like a whole different thing that I had to navigate. And, him being like, I'm not sure this is the right thing that you should be doing. But I did. So yeah, I made a scary decision then. I made a scary decision like 5 years later when I closed my next business down and I moved to LA. In fact, before moving to LA, I actually moved to New York. I had, like I said, one client left. I kept one client on my roster and I moved to New York to work with them. And then I moved over to LA. I really just went to spend some time there because I have family there and I wanted to spend some time with them. But it was just this amazing period of my life. Well, I say amazing. I literally just smoked weed the whole fucking time because as a British person, I could not get over the fact that I was just like, there is literally like clean weed everywhere. In England, that is like not like that. So I was definitely California sober for that period of my life, but been very alcohol sober for 6 years. So yeah, I say it was like relaxing. It was relaxing because I was literally high as a fucking kite the whole time. But that was kind of what I needed at that point in my life. Like I made friends with this like really cute guy who like lived in in fact, guys, I moved into the most disgusting boys' house in Venice Beach that you have ever experienced. I did like a house swap. So my friend Phil, and if you're listening to this, Phil, I'm sorry, I'm about to talk your house. So he basically took my place in London and I moved into his place in LA. When I tell you, it was like probably like a $3 million house in Venice Beach, but it was literally disgusting. There was like hair everywhere. Like the bathrooms were disgusting. I was like, I'm going to get an STI if I touch the seat in this bathroom. It was like, there was like that many people coming in and out of the house, like taking drugs. Like it was gross. The showers, gross. The kitchen, gross. The shower, one of the showers was outdoor. Like I showered outdoors. Like what the fuck? I'm not like in Bali. I was in Venice Beach, like very weird. But it was good vibes all around. Like despite the dirt and the house, it was just like such a good period of my life. And they had this huge workstation set up with all of their computers. And at that point, I was like dating this guy that I met in LA on Rare. And it was just so fun. I was like having such a fun period of my life. But that is when I first went to therapy. So this is the third thing. The third thing I did to unfuck my life, to totally heal my life, was to find the right therapist. And my first therapist was wrong. So he was recommended to me through a friend, and they basically said, this guy is amazing. Now, I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but I didn't need a guy therapist. I needed a girl therapist, because a guy therapist was like just bringing all of my issues with men and my dad, I was about to say my dad to the surface. And that I didn't realize at the time is like, I could not open up in front of men, and I would like force myself to. So I would force myself to be vulnerable, but it was like very uncomfortable. And inherently, I just like didn't feel safe in my nervous system. So it wasn't something that I felt like, oh, like this is amazing and loving and kind and all of these things. It just like, yeah, it like wasn't great. So the first therapist wasn't the right fit. And if you're listening to this, I want you to know that like you have to date, you also have to like therapist date as well. Because the second therapist I found, she was like the most amazing woman in my life. She's called Nikki. I don't even know if she listens to these. She probably doesn't, because like therapists are not supposed to do that. But Nikki, if you're listening, I love you so much. And she was soft and she was kind and she was sweet. She was compassionate. I could cry in front of her. We did inner child work. We did hypnosis work. And it was just so amazing to find someone that I really felt like I could just open up to. And sometimes we would start therapy and I would just cry. Like she'd be like, how are you this week? And I'd be like... And I think you guys know what it's like to feel like that. But to be able to have that safe space where I could like let that unfold was like a huge part of my healing journey. And the thing is like, I didn't feel like I had enough problems to go to therapy. You know, I always grew up with my mum saying like, oh, like at least you aren't like in a refugee camp in Syria. True, fair and valid, Mama Rumball. But also at the same time, like what I've learned from therapy is like, that is actually invalidating like my own internal experience and like all of the very intense emotions that I feel inside as a very sensitive person. So it took me a while to go to therapy and a while to find the right therapist. But the third thing that unfucked my life was finding the right therapist. And I really would advise you guys to look into that, look into the different types of therapy that are available. This woman, Nikki, practiced schema therapy, parts therapy. These things worked for me so much better than cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, because, and we'll come to this later in the episode, but I had very, very, very strong thought patterns that were wired very deeply into a very sensitive nervous system. So I didn't feel like the conscious mind reframing of CBT worked very well for me, but no shit, no shade. It works for some people. So it's really just about like finding out what works for you and working out what kind of therapist you need. Okay, so at this part of my life, I'm in therapy. I've closed down my business. I've moved to LA. I'm having a really good time. I haven't drunk alcohol in like a good couple of years. And I think a really part of my healing journey was that in LA, it's very cool if you don't drink. And not cool in a like, oh, she's cool. I just mean cool like, cool, whatever. Like just people don't care. And I remember once I said to this guy, like we were going on a date and he was like, oh, you don't drink? Like that's cool. Do you microdose? I should do an American accent. Oh yeah, that's cool. Do you microdose? That wasn't bad, was it? And I was like, no, I don't microdose, but like I'm up for it. So it was just a really validating experience, like being in LA where a lot of people are sober or a lot of people don't drink or they just smoke weed or they just microdose. So that was a cool experience for me. So the fourth thing at this point in my life that helped me to unfuck my life and heal myself totally is I started to look at my daddy issues. And they were such a crazily integral part of my life, but I had no idea. Like, honestly, if you had asked me, like, have you got daddy issues? Like, do you have a father wound? Before I'd gone to therapy, I'd probably be like, no, my dad's a good man. I don't have any father issues. Turns out I have possibly the world's biggest father wound in the history of literally the world, Narnia, and every other universe going. And little did I know that it had shaped me so much and had shaped every single relationship that I had ever been in. And so the fourth thing that I did to unfuck my life was to actually identify the fact that I had been in a trap, in a cycle, in a pattern of dating emotionally unavailable men my whole life. And therapy allowed me to reflect on everything. It allowed me to reflect on my first love that I cheated on and I fucked him over so badly. I actually probably fucked myself over more in the whole process of doing that. But it helped me reflect on that. It helped me reflect on the second boyfriend that I loved and he wanted to get engaged when we were like 23 and I loved him with my whole heart. But like, I didn't want to get engaged to him. Like it just didn't feel exciting enough. And like, yeah, like this is it. So I cheated on him as well. Very unhealthy, wounded behavior because I was a very unhealthy, wounded individual at this point. Therapy helped me realize I had low self-esteem. I needed attention from men because I just didn't really feel like I was worthy of getting it myself. And you know, I'd always been like part of the cool crowd, but I kind of felt like this imposter in the cool crowd. Therapy just helped me work out like why I made some really, really shitty choices between particularly the ages of 18 to 25. And after that relationship where we broke up, I then entered into a crazy, toxic, abusive relationship. And it was full of highs, like real, real highs where I was like, I love this man so much. And the sex was like unbelievable. And I honestly just thought he was like so gorge and like so cute. And on the inside of him, I felt like there was this like soft little prince that like only I could see. Also, I just like, that voice just reminded me that my assistant was once like, you remind me of, is it Alexa from Schitt's Creek? Alexia. And that's what I was thinking, like, he's very cute, like on the inside. And that just reminded me of that. Anyway, that relationship was fucked. It was fire and fucked at the same time. It was so good and so, so bad. Badly, it was physically abusive. It was emotionally abusive. It was like all of these things. And it took me a very long time to get out of that relationship. But therapy helped me also reflect on that. It then helped me reflect, if you're new on this podcast, you're going to be like, this girl is wild. It then helped me reflect on how my next boyfriend went to jail. So that was a stressful experience. That was like mad betrayal and abandonment because he didn't tell me that he was going to jail until a year into our relationship. A year. Who says year like that? A year into our relationship. So that was fucked. And then after that, I entered into another relationship, which changed my life in the best way. It was the most healing love I have ever been in. But yeah, there was like a whole lot of shit in that relationship as well. And I then went through a crazy fucking breakup where he called me up, never came home, never came back to our house, never came to get his stuff, and never spoke to me for 3 years until he just emailed me out of the blue one day, 3 years later. Yes. What the fuck? Anyway, my point being is that therapy helped me reflect on all of these crazy relationships, situationships that I'd been in. And this isn't to mention like the shit that happened in between, the guys that don't become our boyfriends. Like we've all been there. We all have had these guys. Anyway, what was the root cause of all of these things? It was my father wound. It was my low self-esteem. It was my need for adrenaline and excitement and attention, because I didn't get that from my dad as a kid. I didn't remember those moments with my dad as a kid. I didn't have conscious memories of moments or bonding or connection with my dad as a kid. And so I had a nervous system that was wired to go and get those adrenaline hits from different places and different people. And that made me very, very vulnerable to attention. Like when men would give me attention and I was in a relationship, it basically made me very vulnerable to being unfaithful. It made me very vulnerable to being in toxic relationships because it meant that I didn't have like a strong sense of self to be like, fuck you, this is abusive, I'm leaving. And so all of these things together kind of started to come to light when I went to therapy. And let's not forget, I went into therapy thinking like there's nothing wrong with me. Like I'm pretty good. Like my relationships are fine. It was just crazy. Like I was asleep and therapy woke me up. That's like all I can explain my therapeutic experience as being. But that is the fourth thing that I did. I started to change my life. I started to heal my life by understanding the father wound, by understanding this deep need that I had inside of me for love and attention and affection from men specifically. And that inherently I was wired for wanting attention from unavailable men because my dad was classified by my nervous system as an unavailable man. But the available men, the ones that actually loved me and worshiped me, and they did. I had such amazing boyfriends, I would cheat on them. And that is so fucked. And it is something that I stopped doing when I was like 25. I'm going to say like I went to therapy, my full frontal lobe, or whatever it's called, fully developed. And I really just started to become a much healthier person that was aware of how wounded I was. But the fourth thing that unfucked my life was looking into the father wound and how it impacted me on such a deep level. So if anyone is listening to this who has a chaotic dating life, I would really start by looking there as well. And like I've said, cut the alcohol and go to therapy, because without those two things, I would have kept repeating my cycles. Like get drunk, go on dates, do things, kiss people, sleep with people you don't want to. Don't go to therapy, don't reflect on what is going on and ever truly understand. Okay, the next thing that was huge in my healing journey and that I would look at for anyone who is on a healing journey is basically understanding how our coping mechanisms and addictions are just actually like protective mechanisms for pain that exists within us that we haven't been taught to face. We haven't been taught to sit with. We haven't been taught to somatically experience inside of our bodies. And as a result of that, when there's pain of uncertainty, pain of potential rejection, pain of actual rejection, loneliness, stress, overwhelm, like there are so many areas that this pain can come from. We aren't taught for the most part to sit with that pain as a kid. We're not asked like, oh baby, like how do you feel? Where do you feel it in your body? Should we move it through your body? Do you want to talk about it? Or I at least like never had those experiences. And I don't think that I'm in a minority for feeling that way or experiencing that. And this is no shade to my parents. Like they were doing the best that they could. They had their own shit. Everyone's parents have their own shit as well. And they also grew up in a generation where their parents were even less emotionally attuned to them than they were to us. So a big part of this journey has been like deep forgiveness for my parents and my family as a whole, all of the generations, that everyone was just doing the best that they could do, even when some of it was like really shitty. And the same for me, like even when I was doing things that were really shitty, it wasn't about like shaming myself more for that. It was about like understanding, and understanding coping mechanisms was a huge part of my healing journey. And that's because I basically started to realize through therapy that almost everything in my life was an escape. It was an addiction from the uncomfortable sensations inside of me. I'm talking, I would exercise or spin 5 times a week because it felt amazing and I loved it. And I was obsessed with my spinning instructor. And what better thing is there to do than to flip your ponytail around on the spinning bike to Ariana Grande? It was an amazing time in my life, and spinning like kept me alive is dramatic, but like quite literally like was one of the best things in my life for a long period of time. But therapy helped me realize that that was just like a coping mechanism. It was endorphins, it was cortisol, it was more stress, it was more adrenaline. And between that and the staying busy, between that and the running the business, that and the always getting on an airplane, that and the getting takeout and binging on the sofa and the Netflix, it started to help me understand that I wasn't equipped to deal with life, and I wasn't equipped to deal with my internal sensations, and I wasn't equipped to be a healthy adult because I didn't have healthy coping mechanisms. I couldn't tell you one thing that I did that was like healthy. I thought that going to exercise was a healthy coping mechanism. So a huge part of unfucking my life was realizing that overeating, overspending, over exercising, over consuming, just staying busy all the time, over traveling, these were just all really like a symptom of me being disconnected from my true self, and a symptom of me not being at home in my body and asking myself, like, how do you feel? And shall we process this together? I wasn't doing that, but I also didn't realize I wasn't doing that because like when you're busy, you don't realize you're not doing that. So that was a huge part of my journey. And between that and the emotionally unavailable men, I started to realize that I'd spent a huge amount of my life looking outside of myself rather than looking inside of myself. And that was because I didn't think there was a reason to look inside myself. It really didn't feel like there was problems. Like I said, I don't live in a refugee camp. I wasn't physically abused by my parents. Someone hadn't died. Like I didn't feel like anything was that bad that I really needed to, even start to look into it. But what I started to realize is that I was responding to life. I was responding to my adulthood. I was responding to my teenage years. I was responding to my childhood. I was responding to my family dynamic and my internal world by just not dealing with it. And I thought I was smart. I thought I was emotionally intelligent. I thought I was all these things. But when I started to go to therapy and unravel it, I actually started to realize there was like a huge internal world inside of me that I wasn't ever looking into. And that was a huge part of my healing journey as well. So number 5, as to how I unfucked my life, was looking at my coping mechanisms and looking what I do when I'm stressed, looking at what I do when I'm lonely, look at what I do when I'm bored. And this has been like a very intricate one to unravel, particularly the exercise, because not only did exercise make me feel amazing, but it also made me look really good. And there was like a lot of times in my life where I got a lot of validation for my body being in like very good shape. And now I'm holding more weight. I just look more normal. I've like got a bit of meat on me, but there were times when I really was like looking different to how I did now. And I was like big into the gym scene. And I just was very wrapped up in thinking that how I looked equated to my worth. And so unpacking those coping mechanisms, the exercise, the eating, things like that, just really helped me understand that I needed to develop new coping mechanisms. And a huge part of my journey, and through doing nervous system regulation work and doing somatic healing and launching this other business that I have called Daily Devotion, which is the subscription to help you do that, I started to realize that when I was able to like discharge the emotions and the stress in my body, I was able to sit with uncomfortable sensations because I was able to build the resiliency of my nervous system. So I've definitely found that I have become a lot more balanced in the way that I deal with things. And I'm a big emotional eater. I always have been. I've definitely struggled with eating disorders over the years as well. I always joke and say, what haven't I struggled with? So that's the one that's kind of like still lingering around a bit. Like, you want to see if I want to eat a pizza on a Friday night? Of course I want to fucking eat a pizza on a Friday night. Do I want to eat a pizza on a Tuesday night? Now, for the most part, no. But if I had a stressful Tuesday, my brain is going to say, yeah, we should have a pizza. So I definitely still am in that loop of food is reward and food is comfort. Okay, I've totally lost track of the numbers and where we're up to because I'm just like free flowing here. I think we're at number 5. The 5th thing I learned that changed my whole healing journey was that there was no amount of being skinnier, richer, prettier, better body, better house, better anything, more money that was ever going to change the hole that I had inside of me. And that's a really savage thing to say, but that hole came from an inherent belief that I just wasn't good enough and I wasn't worthy. And I didn't feel these things in my conscious mind. I felt them in my body, but it came from the father wound. It came from that lack of consistent emotional nervous system nurturing in my childhood that made me just like empty for like that kind of love, which is also why I was like so vulnerable for it. And therapy helped me kind of break down those cycles of shame and like, I'll be happy when. So I always say that if you feel like you say, I should go to the gym, I should do this, I shouldn't feel like this, it's driven from a place of shame. And my life was always driven from a place of shame. It was like, I should do this, I should do that. When I do this, I'll feel like that. And what therapy has taught me is I was coming from a place of lack at all of those things. And what I mean by that is if you're driven from a place of lack inside of you, like you don't feel like you have something, so you want it, that thing is never actually going to make you feel happier in the long run. Because say, for example, you're single and you have this hole inside of you where you secretly on a subconscious or unconscious level feel like you're unlovable. And then you finally attract a man, you finally attract a woman into your life. They don't fill that hole, right? They can fill it partially, but the hole is still going to be there because what if they don't text you back? And what if they go on a weekend out of town? What if they don't communicate with you all the time? What if they break up with you one day? What if the relationship doesn't work out? That hole is still going to be there. And that's what therapy helped me understand was there was a hole that only I could fill. And that hole was filled with shame. And it was ridged into my subconscious mind. And I didn't even consciously realize that I didn't feel enough. But when I looked at my life, when I came back to like a bird's eye perspective, I was able to see like, wow, like everything in my life ties back to this shame and this feeling that I should be a certain way. I should do these things. And when I do these things, then I will feel loved, or then I'll be cool, or then I'll be rich, and then I'll be happy. And therapy helped me realize that no amount of any of these things was going to heal like the emotional wound that was at the bottom of this experience. And that was like really hard to acknowledge and accept because we want the easy way out in life, right? We just want to go to therapy and like have it sorted out. Like I wanted to go to therapy and just have it fixed. I just wanted to fix my attraction to the men I was dating. Like I wanted to fix my heartbreak, all of these things. But therapy helped me realize that it can help you see that place of lack from within you, but it can't necessarily help you fix it. Like the fixing that comes from you doing the somatic work, getting inside of your body, talking with your subconscious mind. I just believe that therapy is like the door opener to like get you there and help you realize that you are worthy of feeling enough and that you are enough. We all are enough, every single one of us, despite everything that we have gone through. So therapy was very, very helpful for me to realize like I was functioning from a place of lack. And if anyone wants to unfuck their life and wants to really go deep on this healing journey, the question is like, where are those places of lack for you? What do you say? Like, oh, I'll just be happy when, oh, I just wish that this would happen. Because when you get to those things give you the answers to where the healing lies. So point 7 on my healing journey was related to this. I basically acknowledged that I had a shame wound. And that was really crazy because I was like, I don't have a shame wound. And that male therapist that I told you about, I remember in our first session, he was like, you need to read this book. It's called The Compassionate Mind. I think it was by John Gilbert on shame. I bought the book. Did I read the book? I did not fucking read the book. And that's very classic of me because before you start doing somatic healing, you just do all of the books, all of the podcasts, you intellectualize everything, you make to-do lists, you write notes, but you don't galvanize into like feeling into the wounds, feeling the shame, feeling the pain, feeling the sadness, letting it go and like rewiring a new experience into it. So did I read the book? No, I didn't. But he told me literally straight away, you have a shame wound. And that's cool because sometimes therapists take like a while to like get you to get to the answer. He told me pretty quickly. Was I open to it? No. Did it come back up with Nikki later in my therapy? Yes, it did. And she helped me really gently and compassionately understand that I had a shame wound and I didn't even realize it. And it played a huge part in my health anxiety. And that's something I haven't spoken about, but I had debilitating. In fact, something else I haven't told you guys, if you are a new listener, is that after that first time that I cheated on my boyfriend when I was 18, I developed a chronic pain disorder called fibromyalgia. The stress of that situation, which I'm not going to go into now, but it was so traumatic. the stress of that basically like triggered an autoimmune chronic pain disorder in my body. So yeah, my enough is enough moment was also driven by the fact that like I had had so much fucking pain in my body and I couldn't explain it. No doctors could explain it. No therapies could help. Like literally nothing could help. I have done every single thing on this planet. Exaggeration, but I'm talking like I even had ozone gas injected into my body to try and kill anything inside of me that was like creating the pain in my body, invisible pathogens and viruses. Like no wonder I had health anxiety. No one knew what the fuck was going on. I had this unexplained pain in my body since I was 18 years old and no one could help me. Like I feel emotional even talking about it. It was very, very traumatic for me. And it led to the world's worst health anxiety, that I would have like symptoms and pain and I would just be on the floor, like convulsing with panic attacks because I didn't know what was going on in my body. And I felt like there was so many things that must have been wrong with me. And on the inside, maybe I was going to die. Like maybe I had diseases. Like it was very distressing. But Nikki helped me realize that the shame was also tied into the health anxiety, because it was like, this belief that there was like something wrong with me, that hole, like the hole that I couldn't put my finger on, like that there was something wrong with me. And that develops into health anxiety and like phobias for people, because it's like there's an inherent lack of safety. And so we don't feel safe and we latch on to things that are also unsafe. And then we just get stuck in these spirals and spirals and spirals. So yeah, point 6 or point 7, who knows where we're up to now, on the things that I did to unfuck my life was heal my shame wound, was to acknowledge that there was a shame wound after all, and that healing it was going to change my life, because it did. Because the moment I started to heal my shame wound, the moment that I started to unpack my daddy issues, unpack my father wound, it all made sense why I was obsessed with the unavailable man. It all made sense that I chased people that I didn't feel like I was worthy of, and they didn't choose me, which reaffirmed my beliefs that I'm not worthy. And then they'd reject me and it would reaffirm my belief that I was not worthy, or I would get them and I would claim them and they'd finally worship me. And then it would like counter the belief that I'm not worthy, because it's like, oh, thank God, like I did it, everything's okay. But then because I still had that hole inside of me, it then would like never really fulfill me. So that was a crazy part of my journey, and a huge, huge, huge part of healing, that if you're listening to this and you don't know where to go next, I think that shame and the father wound are incredibly powerful places. Okay, point 8. The next thing that helped me heal my life was realizing I had suppressed my voice my entire life. I didn't realize that because I grew up in a family unit where kind of emotion wasn't like super welcome, even though my mum was like pretty vocal, so I became like quite vocal, I was holding a lot of shame around using my voice. And my therapist helped me realize this and helped me understand that that's why I didn't set boundaries with men. That's why I didn't set standards with men. That's why I didn't say, hey, like that behavior is fucking like dog. Like, why are you acting like that? Like, we had a plan and you didn't show up. This is done for me. Instead of being understanding and like trying to be nice to them, trying to help them, trying to get them to like fall in love with me, I wasn't using my voice. I wasn't using my voice. I wasn't using my power, and I didn't even believe in my voice. And so that has become a huge part of my healing journey. Point 8, learning that we all have a voice. We are all entitled to use it. Us using our voice does not make us angry. It does not make us a crazy woman. It actually just leads to us being like an empowered, healthy woman that knows what she wants and is able to share that, and then is able to watch the reaction of people around her to see if they are someone that can hold space for healthy feedback, healthy boundaries, and a healthy lived experience. Okay, so point 9 on my healing journey was basically coming to this like crazy realization that what we don't express, our body will manifest physically. And it is quite as simple as that. It's taken me many years to like talk about this openly, because I just didn't believe it was true. I just didn't want to believe it was true. Like, I wanted to believe that there was physical reasons behind my chronic pain disorder. I wanted to believe that maybe it was this or maybe it was that. But the more and more healing that I've done, I have concluded that emotional suppression, high cortisol, and a sensitive nervous system was behind my chronic pain disorder. And the trauma that is thrown into the mix throughout my life, and the trauma of things that I've gone through, and also like the trauma that I'm holding from generations before me, ancestral trauma is a very real thing. And we have a lot of fucking trauma in my family. I think we all do. I just started to finally acknowledge and admit that maybe my body was screaming at me after all. Maybe it was communicating to me. And since I stepped into this field, I've started to see that everyone's body communicates to them differently. So some people, they will gain weight and they will hold on to the weight because they don't feel safe. Their hormones are out of whack. They need that protection from something or something in the outer world. It might be that they have a chronic pain disorder. It might be that they have an autoimmune disorder. And I have spent years researching the connection between emotional suppression and autoimmune, emotional suppression and chronic illness, emotional suppression and high stress levels. And what I will tell you is that suppressing emotions, not using our voice, not being authentic, not being able to move and breathe and scream and cry and express ourselves in the way that we're meant to, that is stressful for the body. Because from an evolutionary perspective, we were built to do those things. We were built to process. Just look at animals in the wild. Like when they are nearly killed, they go into fight, flight, freeze. They freeze in front of the prey. Then they fight, they flight, they run away. And then if they escape and they don't die, they shake it out. They literally will shake and they will their nervous system will act like it's trying to attack the animal that just nearly killed them. And you can watch this on YouTube. It's kind of stressful. So maybe don't, you can just take it from me, but there's a polar bear video that's very, very interesting on this. And it just shows that our bodies are meant to move and cry and express and shake and process. And my whole life, I wasn't doing that. I was just staying busy. I was just building my business. I was just going to the gym. I was just booking another flight. I was just focusing on what I look like, distracting myself with dating apps, dating famous models. God, some of the stories that I have that I can't really share on this podcast because the people are famous are just too good. Maybe I need to give them an alibi. That's not the right word. An alias. That's what I wanted, and bring them onto the show. But yeah, I just was staying so busy and I just wasn't attending to my internal world. I wasn't attuning to my internal world, and I wasn't looking at or processing the trauma that I went through, the traumatic experiences in my life. There have been a lot of them, and yeah, we've all gone through them. So that was another huge part of my healing journey, was that whatever we suppress, it's going to physically manifest at some point in your life. All you have to do is look at the recent PubMed studies that are coming out, so clinically backed research on the connection between emotional suppression and breast cancer and the suppression of anger and cancer. And I think we're just at the forefront of what we're going to realize over the next few years. But that is ultimately what led me into somatic healing. And that is the 9th thing on this list, is somatic healing was the one thing that changed my life. And it was the thing that healed me more than anything. Working with my body, somatic shaking, releasing that energy of the past, working out movements and practices and therapies that I could do to move that through my body. It was the only thing that ever helped me with my chronic pain disorder. And 3 minutes of somatic shaking has done more for me than $750 of ozone injected into my blood or hyperbaric oxygen chambers. And I have gone to the best biohacking clinics in the world to get them to help me, and they didn't know what was going on. They helped me with some things, oh, you're low in dopamine, you're low in serotonin, your gut health is off, all these things might be contributing to the pain. But they really didn't have a clue. So it was somatic therapy that was the thing that actually changed my life. It was releasing that energy that I was holding on to in every cell, in every muscle, in every piece of my fascia, in every system, in every organ, in my gut, the vagus nerve that runs between our brain and our gut. I was bloated. I had hot girl stomach issues. I would get cramps, but there was nothing wrong with me. I tested negative for H. pylori, negative for SIBO. I didn't have a gut issue. I had an emotional suppression issue. I didn't have a gut issue. I had a childhood trauma issue. I didn't have a gut issue. I had a lack of emotional processing issue. And that was really the crazy wake-up call. And the moment that I started breathing, moving, somatic shaking, doing somatic Pilates, doing intuitive movement, doing tapping, doing these things, working with energetic trauma release, working with TRE, trauma release exercises, that is when everything started to change. That is when I started to release the energy, regulate my nervous system. I learned about fight, flight, freeze, polyvagal theory, how we are driven by our nervous systems, how our coping mechanisms are just protective mechanisms against the state of the nervous system that are trying to help us. Like, you're in fight or flight. Okay, I'm going to eat a pizza to like basically distract you from that. Okay, you're in freeze. I'm just going to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on my iPhone because like it's the only thing I can do in this freeze mode. So that was the final part of my healing journey. And that is where I am today. And through going on that journey, through the relationship reflections, through the therapy, through the going sober, through the father issues, through reflecting on emotionally unavailable men and the situationships and the people that I was obsessed with. I'm talking like hard fucking limerence, like spent 3.5 years thinking this man has to be my soulmate because of like 2 experiences that we spent together that were so intense that they blew my mind. I'm talking those kind of things. That is what somatic healing helped me with. And like I always say, therapy is the door to healing. Somatic therapy is the elevator. That is the thing that just takes you at speed to the place that you want to go. And so that is where we are today. I've launched another business outside of the podcast because I needed to bring these modalities to people that don't have a somatic therapist, that aren't receiving this through their traditional one-to-one therapy, that don't know where to turn, that don't know how to do somatic shaking, that don't know how to do somatic Pilates. That's a concept that I literally created myself. Like, I love it so much. So yeah, this healing journey has been a crazy one. And the things that I shared with you today, like, they are just some of the key parts of my journey, my healing journey, that have helped me unfuck myself, have helped me get unstuck, have helped me, I guess, just like get to know myself a little bit better and start to be kind to myself. And I think that that's where I'm going to round up today's episode. Is a huge part of my journey was acknowledging that the voice inside my head actually wasn't mine. The voice in my head that says, you should do this, that wasn't mine. The voice in my head that says, he's probably going to judge you, or like, you should send him a nude, or like, you should do X, Y, or Z, or yes, you should travel across London for 45 minutes because he's invited you for a drink, but he doesn't want to come to you. Like, yeah, you should do that because this man might be your soulmate. I've realized through this journey, through therapy, through reflection, through somatic healing, that the voice inside our head is not our voice. It's a voice that has come from so many years of conditioning. And I always say, if you are not programming your mind, your subconscious mind, the mind that is driving 95% of our day is the subconscious mind, the one that we're not even aware of. If you are not programming that, someone else is. And that person, those people, they are going to be your parents. They are going to be the family unit you grew up in. They are going to be your siblings. They are going to be the people you went to school with, the experiences that you had at school, all of these things. So as we come to wrap up today and this reintroduction episode to myself, I guess, first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here. I think it's such an amazing experience to say enough is enough. I deserve more from my life than this. I want more from my life than this. I deserve to be hot, happy, healthy. I deserve to be all of these things. And I deserve to unlearn the conditioning and the programming that didn't even come from me. It came from layers and layers of the world and society and family patterns that have made you into the person that you are today. And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve to peel those layers back and to find you, the essence of you, the truth of you, and build the you that you want to be, build the life that you want to lead. We have so much more control over this life than we actually realize. We are taught that it just pans out for us. We just have to go with the flow. But when you start to do this work and somatically peel back the layers and like melt them away, you realize that you can choose your new layers. You can choose the people you engage with. You can choose your job. You can choose what you do with your life. You can choose how you interact with people. You can choose the boundaries you set, the words you use, the people that get access to you. You can choose how you respond. You have so much choice, but it only can start when you start to get inside of your body, start self-reflecting, and start realizing that until you start working with your subconscious mind, you are going to keep repeating the same patterns from your conscious mind and calling them fate. Thank you so much for joining me. I think we're going to wrap here. That was so fun to be back on here and recording my first ever Healing Honeys episode, and crazy doing it on video. It feels so weird, like looking into a camera. Most of the time I record these podcast episodes like quite literally in bed in my pajamas with like a cat on top of me. So maybe we'll get to the point that we do that. But today I got dressed, I brushed my hair, I put some makeup on for you. I'm so happy that you are here. And please, 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 if you do not already, hit the follow or subscribe button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcasts. This really helps me to reach more people, to go on this journey with you and other people, and helps me make some money from advertising for the podcast so I can cover the costs that it costs to produce this podcast. And the podcast has changed my life. You guys have changed my life. You are my healing honeys. I am so happy to go on this journey with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. Please DM me. Let me know if you've listened to this episode. I would love, love, love to hear from you. But most of all, stay tuned for this new series 3 of the, oh my God, I nearly said Open House podcast, series 3 of the Healing Honeys podcast. That's going to take a while to get used to. It's going to be special, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be different. So can't wait to go on this journey with you. And if you do want to go a little bit deeper and join me in a healing capacity rather than just listening to me on the podcast, you can join me on my monthly healing subscription, Daily Devotion, that I mentioned. The link is in the show notes. And not only do you get a free 14-day trial, but you also get access to my free 6-part Nervous System 101 course, as well as my free 90-minute Chill Girl workshop where I help you understand holistically why you're feeling a little crazy, a little stressed inside of your body. So let's continue this journey to happiness, continue this journey to calm, cool, confident, chill, all these things. You deserve the world, and I'm here to help you get it. So thank you so much. I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you back on another Healing Honeys episode very soon. Goodbye.